China, 690 AD, a woman sits on the dragon throne. Something that wasn't just forbidden, it was impossible. Her name was Wu Zetian. To get there, she allegedly strangled her own infant daughter, poisoned her rivals, systematically eliminated anyone, including her own sons, who stood between her and absolute power. Confucian scholars called her a demon. They spent centuries trying to erase her. But here's what they couldn't erase. She ruled the most powerful empire on earth for nearly half a century, and China thrived. So was Wu Zetian history's most evil woman, or a brilliant leader who refused to accept her limitations? This is her story, the one they tried to bury. Wu Zetian was born in 624 AD into a wealthy merchant family. Money, but no status. For a woman, that meant one path to power, the imperial harem. At 14, Wu entered the Forbidden City as a low-ranking concubine to Emperor Taizong, 5th rank, one step above a servant. But Wu was different, highly educated, politically savvy. She didn't want to survive the harem, she wanted to own it. Emperor Taizong barely noticed her, 13 years, and Wu remained a nobody. Most women would have faded away, but Wu made a decision that changed everything. She began an affair with the emperor's son, Crown Prince Li Ji. The risk? Death. The crown prince sleeping with his father's concubine? That was treason. But Wu calculated correctly. When Emperor Taizong died in 469 AD, Wu was sent to a Buddhist monastery, her head shaved, her story over. Except Li Ji, now Emperor Gaozong, summoned her back within a year. He reinstated her, then rapidly promoted her. The court was scandalized, but Emperor Gaozong didn't care. Wu had her foot back in the door. There was one problem: Empress Wang. The legitimate wife, politically connected, untouchable. By every rule, Wu should never have challenged her. So Wu played the long game. She befriended Empress Wang, positioned herself as an ally. Behind closed doors, she built her network. Then in 654 AD, Wu gave birth to a daughter. Shortly after Empress Wang visited the child, the infant was found strangled. Wu screamed, wept, and pointed at Empress Wang. No proof, no witnesses, just Wu's tears. Did Wang kill the baby? Almost certainly not. Did Wu kill her own child to frame the empress? We'll never know. But Wu was the primary beneficiary. Emperor Gaozong believed her. Within a year, Empress Wang was arrested, stripped of her titles, imprisoned. Wu became Empress Wu. Wu ordered both Wang's and consort Xiao's hands and feet cut off, then had them thrown into a vat of wine to drown. Legend says consort Xiao cursed Wu, swearing to return as a cat. Wu banned cats from every palace she lived in. Wu had just announced to the Forbidden City exactly what happened to anyone in her way.
For the next decade, Wu operated as empress, but she was far more than ceremonial. Emperor Gaozong suffered chronic health problems, terrible headaches and dizzy spells that left him incapacitated. Wu began attending his meetings, first behind a screen, then openly speaking, making decisions. Officials protested, but Gaozong supported her, even issuing an edict that any decision Wu made had his full authority. By the 660s, they were ruling together, the two saints. But everyone knew Wu was increasingly in control. Being empress wasn't enough. As long as Gaozong lived, her power was borrowed, and there were powerful people who wanted her gone. Chancellors like Shangguan Yi openly called for her removal. They drafted a secret petition to the emperor. Wu's spy network intercepted it. Shangguan Yi was arrested, tortured, executed. His entire family killed or exiled. Over the next years, Wu systematically purged anyone who threatened her. She replaced them with people loyal to her, many from lower classes who owed their positions entirely to her patronage. But Wu had another problem: sons. She had 4 sons with Gaozong. The eldest, Li Hong, should have been crown prince, but Li Hong opposed some of her mother's policies. In 675 AD, Li Hong died suddenly at 23. Official cause, tuberculosis, but rumors spread immediately. Wu had poisoned him. Her second son, Li Shen, became crown prince, intelligent, capable, popular. In 680 AD, weapons were discovered in his residence. He was accused of plotting rebellion, deposed, exiled, eventually forced to commit suicide. Her third son, Li Zhe, became emperor when Gaozong died in 683 AD. He lasted 6 weeks. 6 weeks, because he tried to promote his wife's father without consulting Wu. Wu deposed him, exiled him, and installed her fourth son, Li Dan, as puppet emperor. She ruled openly as Empress Dowager. For 7 years, Wu ruled through her son, but she wanted more, to rule as emperor in her own name. The obstacles were enormous. Confucian philosophy held that female ruling men violated the natural order. The entire ideological foundation of Chinese civilization said what Wu wanted was impossible. So Wu dismantled that foundation. First, she promoted Buddhism over Confucianism. Buddhism had no explicit prohibition against female rulers. She commissioned texts with prophecies about a female ruler bringing enlightenment. She built massive Buddhist temples, including the Longmen grottos, with huge statues modeled on her face. She positioned herself as a reincarnation of the future Buddha. Second, she cultivated a personality cult. Scholars wrote treatises arguing female energy could dominate male energy. Astronomical observations proved she was divinely ordained. Third, she incentivized support. Officials who backed her received promotions and power. Those who resisted, exile or execution. In 690 AD, Wu did the impossible. She forced Emperor Rizong to abdicate, declared the end of the Tang Dynasty, and took the throne as emperor. Not empress, emperor. A woman sat on the dragon throne. Holding power required maintaining fear. Wu established the Surveillance Office, a secret police that investigated anyone suspected of disloyalty. Torture became routine. Officials faced horrific deaths. Lai Junchen, Wu's chief enforcer, wrote a manual on extracting confessions and kept a collection of torture devices. Tang historians claimed thousands died during her reign of terror. Fear was Wu's primary tool for maintaining power. Yet while this horror happened in the capital, the empire was functioning. The borders were secure, the economy was stable, the people weren't rebelling.
Here's where Wu Zetian's story gets complicated. Because while she was purging rivals and consolidating power through fear, she was also implementing reforms that would fundamentally transform China for centuries. The most important? The expansion of the imperial examination system. Before Wu, high positions went almost exclusively to aristocratic families. Birth determined your career. If you weren't from the right family, you had no chance, no matter how talented. Wu changed that. She dramatically expanded the examination system, opening government positions to anyone who could pass the tests. Peasant family, merchant background, didn't matter. If you had the knowledge and ability, you could serve. Why? Wu needed allies. The old aristocratic families hated her, so she created a new class of officials who owed their positions entirely to her. But the effect was revolutionary. For the first time in Chinese history, talent and education mattered more than birth. The system Wu expanded would continue for over 1,000 years until the end of the Qing Dynasty in 1912. Wu also proved herself as a military leader, something her critics never wanted to acknowledge. During her reign, China faced threats from the Tibetan Empire in the west and the Turkic Khaganate in the north.
These weren't minor skirmishes, these were existential threats to Chinese security. Wu authorized major military campaigns. She appointed capable generals, gave them resources, held them accountable for results. Under her rule, China secured its western borders, expanded influence in Central Asia, maintained stability along the northern frontier. There were defeats, heavy losses, expensive failures, but overall, China's strategic position was stronger at the end of Wu's reign than at the beginning. Even the Confucian historians who despised her admitted that China's borders were secure under her rule. And then there's the economy. By all accounts, China prospered during Wu's reign. She invested heavily in infrastructure, canals, roads, irrigation systems. She implemented land reforms that reduced the power of large landowners and gave more stability to peasant farmers. She promoted trade, both domestic and along the Silk Road. Tax revenues increased, not because she raised rates, but because the economy was growing. Agriculture expanded, cities grew, trade flourished. Again, her critics couldn't deny this. China was wealthy under Wu Zetian. The people, by and large, were not suffering. There were no massive famines, no economic collapses, no peasant rebellions. So here's the paradox at the heart of Wu Zetian's reign. She ruled through fear and brutality. She murdered rivals, possibly her own children. She established a secret police state. She tortured and killed thousands of officials. And yet, the empire thrived. The borders were secure. The economy grew. Social mobility increased. Infrastructure improved. How do we make sense of this? Was she a monster or a genius? A tyrant or a visionary? The answer, she was both. She operated in a system that gave women zero legitimate paths to power, so she carved her own through blood and brilliance. She killed rivals because they would have killed her. She ruled through fear because mercy would have been seen as weakness, and weakness would have meant her downfall. But age catches everyone, even emperors. By the early 700s, Wu was in her 70s. She had ruled directly for 15 years, and through her sons for a decade before that. Her health was declining, and at court, the vultures were circling. Officials who had been waiting decades for her death began positioning themselves. The question everyone asked was, what happens when Wu Zetian dies? The Tang Dynasty princes, her sons whom she'd deposed, were still alive, still waiting. The old aristocratic families had never accepted her, and Wu's own allies knew their positions were precarious once she was gone. In 704 AD, Wu's health worsened significantly. She became bedridden, isolated in her chambers, and a group of officials led by Zhang Jianji decided it was time to act. They launched a coup. Not against Wu directly, she was too weak to resist, but they forced her to abdicate, bringing back her son, the deposed Emperor Zhongzong, and restoring the Tang Dynasty. Wu Zetian, the only woman to rule China as emperor, was removed from power. Not through defeat in battle, not through popular rebellion, but through a palace coup when she was too weak to fight back. She died 10 months later in 705 AD, at the age of 81. And then the purge began. Not of bodies, but of history. The restored Tang Dynasty officials immediately began erasing Wu's legacy. They destroyed records of her achievements. They emphasized her crimes. They portrayed her as a demon, a witch, a cautionary tale about what happens when women seek power. The Zhou dynasty she'd proclaimed, erased. The Tang Dynasty officially resumed as if there'd been no interruption. Her name was removed from official histories or mentioned only with contempt. They wanted her forgotten. After Wu Zetian's death, Confucian scholars went to work. They portrayed her as a monster, a witch, a warning to all women who dared seek power in the Forbidden City. They wanted her erased. But here's what they couldn't erase. The reforms she implemented remained. The examination system she expanded continued, democratizing power for the next 1,000 years. The military campaigns she authorized secured China's borders for generations. The infrastructure she built, the canals, the roads, the irrigation systems, served the empire for centuries. Even her enemies admitted China was stable and prosperous under her rule. For over 1,000 years, Wu Zetian was portrayed as evil incarnate in Chinese histories. The Confucian scholars who controlled historical narratives made sure of that. She became a cautionary tale, a symbol of female ambition run amok. But modern historians have begun reassessing her legacy. They've pointed out that the sources we have about Wu come from her enemies, men who hated her and had every reason to exaggerate her crimes. Did she kill her infant daughter? Maybe, but the only sources for this come from historians writing decades after her death. Did she poison her sons? Possibly, but again the evidence is circumstantial at best. Did she rule through fear? Absolutely, but so did most emperors. The difference is that male emperors weren't called monsters for doing exactly what Wu did. Today, Wu Zetian has been somewhat rehabilitated in China. TV dramas portray her as complex, not simply villainous. She's seen as proof of female capability and leadership, a woman who refused to accept the limitations society imposed on her. In 2013, China even issued stamps commemorating her reign. Tourist sites celebrate her as a historical figure of importance, not shame. But the darker truths remain undeniable. Even if some of the crimes attributed to her were exaggerated or fabricated, enough evidence exists to confirm she ruled through fear, eliminated rivals ruthlessly, and prioritized power above all else. Wu Zetian didn't just break the rules of the Forbidden City, she shattered them, rebuilt the system, and ruled one of history's most powerful empires for nearly half a century. She proved a woman could do the impossible. And she proved exactly what it would cost. Because here's the reality. A woman in 7th century China could not rise to power through legitimate means. There were no legitimate means. The system was designed to exclude her completely. So Wu chose between accepting invisibility or fighting her way to the top through any means necessary. She chose power, and the price was blood. Does that make her evil, or does it make her pragmatic? A survivor in a system designed to destroy ambitious women? Maybe it makes her both. Wu Zetian's tomb stands in Shanxi province, marked by a completely blank stone tablet. No epitaph, no inscription, just blank stone. Some say she left it blank because her achievements spoke for themselves. Others say it was left blank because her crimes were too terrible to record, even by the imperial court that despised her. Maybe she wanted future generations to decide who she really was. So what do you think? Was Wu Zetian a monster who murdered her way to the dragon throne, or a brilliant leader trapped in a system that gave her no choice? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every one. If you want more buried secrets from history's most controversial rulers, stories the world tried to erase, subscribe to DarkPast right now. Turn on notifications because the next video will expose someone even more shocking than Wu Zetian. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Hit that subscribe button. Join the community uncovering history's darkest truths. I'll see you in the next one.